All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another NBA playoff video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons versus Cleveland Cavaliers, and we're going to do a little news wrap up from the last couple days in the NBA. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have an opinion, comment it down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. So first thing on the docket today is this Pistons versus Cavs game in Detroit. This was a doozy. This was something, man. Both teams undefeated at home in this series, and both teams tried to remain undefeated at home, but that streak did come to an end with the Cavaliers winning this game 117 to the Detroit Pistons 113 in an overtime game. Cleveland takes a 3-2 series lead. And let's just jump into it. Let's talk about it. So, biggest thing of note for the Pistons, a negative and a positive, depends how you look at it. No Duncan Robinson for them. He is out with, I forget what he was out with, but he didn't play in this game. And in his place, Dennis Jenkins is inserted into the starting lineup. He finishes the game with 19 points, 2 of 8 from 3, 8 of 17, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, with 2 blocks, 1 steal, and he was just all over the floor. But we'll get into that in a moment. Throughout the first half, the only 2 notes I have here are that Tyson and Stewart get into it, which is its own thing. And then Tobias Harris gets into Jalen Tyson's face as well. And what this triggered was Tobias Harris going on a little bit of a run, helping his team. He was pretty quiet up until that point, and then after this point as well, he was sort of kind of quiet. So in the second quarter, he really got all his points. He had 13 points, 1 of 7 from 3, 3 assists, 6 rebounds, and then didn't really show up for the rest of the game. But to end the half, Detroit goes on a great run, but is stunted by the Cavs' run at the end of the second. So Detroit, beginning of the or end of the first, beginning of the second, really good minutes from everybody. And then as it looked like they were just about to pull away and get into the what's it, I guess like the halfway point, the Cavs go on a run and they're right back in it. And this becomes a problem because the Pistons, I don't want to say we're used to having big leads at home and just cruising in the second half, because that's not what the series is at all. But they did seem like they were a little unprepared in the second half and in the overtime as well. So we get into the second half here. The Pistons keep their head down for most of the third. Good defense, plays in transition, but the Cavs manage to wiggle their way in back to this game. So again, Detroit goes on a really good run, especially defensively with Dennis Jenkins, Asor Thompson. Paul Reed played some really good minutes for them as well in this third quarter and in the fourth quarter. Marcus Sasser was out there as well, playing his butt off. Not didn't do too much in the box score, but watching the game, you could see Marcus Sasser really trying. He was also somebody who got more minutes because of Duncan Robinson being out. Dennis Jenkins was the starter, and then Marcus Sasser took his minutes off the bench. So, um, yeah, both of them were really good defensively. I have a note here. That's why there was a long pause. I have a note here that says Dan. I think I was supposed to write Danis, but this is Danis Jenkins is in increasing the gap. I don't know who Dan is. That might be wrong. I think it is Danis Jenkins. We'll just say it's Danis Jenkins for this. But the Pistons' pace was absolutely killer. It was interesting because the Cavs like to run their big lineup, Mobley and Allen. And Mobley has been benched at times during like these critical times. For Evan Mobley is a bit more mobile, not no pun intended. Um, and they sort of put Max Strus in with the rest of the guys, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Dean Wade, or Sam Merrill's in there, or Dennis Schroeder's in there. They've gone to a 3 guard, 4 guard lineup as well during this series, and the Cavs never really seem to play into the Pistons' pace, especially in this game. The pace for the Pistons was really good. It was the defensive stuff. It was the 3-on-2s. It was the 4-on-5s. It was the mismatches that they were hunting in the transition game that really helped the Pistons not secure the lead, but stay just enough ahead throughout the third and parts of the fourth quarter. But for the Cavaliers, the guy who hasn't shown up all playoffs decided to show up. Max Juice, 20 points, took only threes. He was 6 of 8 from three. I think he was. I thought they said he was 7 for 8. I guess they must have ruled one of them a two. 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. Max has been. I don't want to say he's been impactful outside of the box score for sure. The stat sheet. He just he's been doing all the little things, and for him to finally hit his shots made this team look very scary. And I think if he continues to just make five threes a game, make four a game, it makes this Cavs team a little bit more dynamic, and it makes their rotations a little bit better because Dennis Schroeder can't shoot the three ball, that much of a three shooter. Sam Merrill, the only other 3 point shooter, and then Jalen Tyson only played 3 minutes. Damn, it's just is out there as like a doing grunt work, doing the little things, same as Max Struess. But you need another guy off the bench to help subsidize a James Harden, Donovan Mitchell game, especially when James Harden and Donovan Mitchell don't have the greatest percentages. If you have a shooter that can shoot at a very high clip, it does help a lot. It helps immensely. Then we head into crunch time here, and it starts with an Evan Mobley three that cuts the lead to two um, for the Pistons. And this starts a whole avalanche of I don't think the Pistons are that serious. And it feels like whatever everybody said all regular season is coming back to haunt them where they're asking Cade Cunningham to do too much. They're asking him to do way too much. And, Duncan Robinson not being here is a huge blow in that respect because at least Duncan is a shooter. Cade can kick out to him, and we're gonna get to who replaced um, Duncan Robinson in those minutes and in those shots where if Cade's getting downhill and kicks it out, it's going to be Duncan Robinson. No, 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 not in this game. He's not in this game. The Cavs have a very jumbled up possession, and then the Pistons go down the floor, or it was after a timeout. I forget which one it was, and somehow, some way, the ball finds Karis LeVert again, and he bricks the shot. And that's who is supposed to that was supposed to be Duncan Robinson in that corner or in that spot. And if the ball found Karis LeVert, and Karis LeVert was 0 of 3 from three, and I have nothing against Karis LeVert. I think Karis LeVert is the most below average role player ever. Like he has 2 good games a year, maybe one, and he makes his living off that, off those games. The other games, especially in the playoffs, he's a former Cleveland Cavalier as well. The Cavs got rid of him for a reason. He's not that great, and when you need him the most, he's not. He doesn't step up, and that's been Karis LeVert his whole career. Um, they get into the foul game, and then there was a great defensive possession by the Pistons that ends in a no call um, with Jared Allen, in my eyes at least, tripping Ahmed Thompson or Asor Thompson, pardon me, and the ball goes out of bounds and it remains Cavaliers ball, and the Pistons just let it run out and it goes to overtime. And then we get to overtime, and I wanted to turn off this game because I had to watch a WNBA game after this, and it was cutting into my time watching the WNBA game. And the Cavs came out so serious in this overtime. It was right off the jump, right off the bat. They wanted to win this one in overtime because they didn't manage to end it in regulation, and the Pistons just seemed overwhelmed in those first like minute or two of overtime. Um, and the Cavs were just so dead serious and understood that there's only 5 minutes in this overtime. We need to win this. We need to at least win three of these minutes, and then our defense can take us the other two. And that's exactly what happened. And then we get through overtime, we get through these extra couple minutes, and guess who the ball finds again for the Pistons? Cade has to kick it out, and it's not to Tobias Harris, it's not to Dennis Jenkins, who did have a couple cracks at threes, but it's Karis LeVert again, and Karis LeVert bricks it again, and it just becomes a mess after that. The Detroit Pistons have to play the foul game with the Cavaliers, and it's going to end in them having to take another three again to just send it to a second overtime, or go for a two and then hope one of the Cavaliers misses their free throws. Well, they sent James Harden to the free throw line. He made one, and I don't know if he did it on purpose or he did it on accident, but he reacted very quickly. James Harden misses the second one, and nobody on the Pistons was ready for that. And James gets his own rebound and gets fouled again, and that was the game. And it was a huge missed opportunity for Detroit. Even if it was just only another chance at a Karis LeVert three, then you take that. But it was just sloppy basketball from the Pistons, and I don't. I've come to the conclusion throughout this series that the Pistons they just aren't smart enough to go to a conference finals, and there isn't enough people on this team. Like, I like a lot of these guys on this team. I like Cade Cunningham. I like Asor Thompson. I like Dennis Jenkins. I like Paul Reed. I like Marcus Sasser. I like Ron Holland, who didn't play in this game. I like Javante Green, who didn't play in this game. But they just don't have enough names, and I don't want to say the star power for the Cavs is like killing the Pistons, but you drop this one at home, and now you're heading back to Cleveland, and you have to win one in Cleveland, and the Cavs are undefeated at home in this playoff run. It's not looking great. The numbers aren't with you. For the Cavaliers, 16 points for Jared Allen, 10 rebounds. Evan Mobley, 8 rebounds, 19 points. James Harden, 30 points, 8 of 21 from field goal, 3 of 10 from 3, 11 of 14 from free throw, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. Evan Mobley also had 8 assists. Donovan Mitchell, 21 points, uh, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers. James Harden also had 6 turnovers. And James Harden had 3 blocks? Damn, that's crazy. Off the bench, Max Strus, 20 points, like we talked about. Very good efficiency. And yeah, the Pistons kind of waste this one. I'm not going to lie. They really wasted this one. This was one that was in your grasp if the game stopped 5 minutes earlier in the fourth quarter. You had this game, and they just didn't take it seriously enough. And I felt like because they were at home, they relaxed a little too much. And when they relaxed a little too much, that put everybody out of their rhythm, and it let the Cavs really put their foot down and nail them. But yeah, again, the Cavaliers win this game 117 to the Detroit Pistons 113. All right, so let's talk about some other stuff here. In front of you, we have some Giannis stuff that we're going to get to. We have some Steve Kerr stuff we're going to get to. We have some Daryl Morey stuff we're going to get to. And we have some NBA draft lottery results. I think I want to talk about the NBA draft lottery first. Right? Right? No, let's talk about the Steve Kerr stuff too. Steve Kerr, his his contract was up at the end of this year, and I talked about it at some capacity um, in the video that they got eliminated, or was that, yeah, when they got eliminated? Yeah, yeah, when they got eliminated from the play in. They lost the play in, right? Yeah, they lost the play in. That's right. And I was reminiscing on all the good times this Warriors team had when they were the most dominant team in the league, and how I feel like Steve Kerr doesn't get enough credit. I don't think he's the most brilliant X's and O's guy, but he's a hell of a communicator and a motivator, and all the things you want. And I wasn't sure if they were going to bring him back. Maybe they would try to head in a different direction. If the draft pick was going to be very high and they could get a really young talent, they might bring somebody new in and just let Steph and Draymond ride out the next couple years. But that didn't happen. Steve Kerr is back on a new 2 year deal. It's multi-year, but I believe it's just 2 years, an additional 2 years. And from what all indications that I've seen and heard, especially from Mike Dunleavy Jr. in the front office. He's the head decision maker in the Warriors front office. He said he just wants the continuity. He Mike Dunleavy wanted to keep everybody happy. Obviously, Steve Kerr's been there the longest. He's the most successful coach in their franchise history, and he just wanted to keep everything as it is right now. And does that mean shaking up the roster drastically? Probably not, but I wouldn't put anything out of the positive realm of possibilities. And some additional news came out that also made me very opened my eyes a little bit, and it came out this morning actually. That Steph Curry wants to play till year 20 of his career, and that would put him right at the end of this decade. I believe that's 2028, 2029, if we are going by that number. So we're in 2026 right now. Steve Kerr's deal is 2 more seasons, so 2027 technically, and then 2028. So Steph would either play an additional year without Steve Kerr, right? Yeah, without Steve Kerr, or whatever the case may be in that department. What do I think about this as a whole? I think it's just taking care of the people that made your franchise what it is, and there was some like stuff that came out earlier this year about Steve Kerr and like people like around the Warriors, like in the front, not in the front office, but like ownership and like people that work in the building and stuff. They didn't like Steve Kerr speaking out about political things, and I wanted to make a video on that, but it felt too political at the time. It felt like it was too like on the nose, and I was gonna say something I didn't want to say. But all I'll say about that, and that was just a rumor. That was never confirmed, by the way. That was just something that leaked out apparently, or was sort of the truth, like a half truth, we'll call it. But I always thought Steve Kerr always spoke on political matters that he knew about. He never just said stuff. He never has made comments about things he doesn't know about. Steve Kerr has been um, affected by many a tragedy, and I think he has every right to be able to discuss what he wants to discuss. And if the question is asked to him in a press conference, I believe he should be able to answer it. If he brings it up, he should be able to bring it up. I think people are too in their own heads when it comes to political conversation because they always want to say the right thing to their audience, right? And if the people in Silicon Valley, where the Warriors are right now, in San Francisco, don't like that, then too bad, too bad. If the owner's $1 million friends and multi-millionaire friends don't like it, too bad. I think Steve Kerr has earned every right to talk about what he wants to talk about, and like I said, he's the most successful coach in franchise history. If he starts saying stuff that's like off his rocker, sure, I can agree with those people. Like, hey, Steve, shut up. You're just a coach right now. But like he only talks about stuff that he knows and stuff that he feels very passionately about. He doesn't come to every press conference with like a sheet of notes that like he wants to talk about this topic, this topic, this topic. If something tragic happens, then he Steve Kerr will talk about it because Steve Kerr is a great people person, and to another extent, Steph Curry is a great people person. There are some things about Steph that I don't love. I think as we get to know these athletes more and more, and as they invest in stuff more and more, you kind of look at people like that's kind of weird. It's kind of shady. That doesn't really line up with my values. But hey, if it lines up with Steph's, then that's his decision. But getting back to the basketball side of this, um, I think this is poised to be a very interesting off season for the Warriors because there's there's another guy up here who we're gonna get into another topic. There's the stuff about they could make a run for Giannis. They can make a run for LeBron. They can make a run for Kawhi. I think keeping Steve Kerr as the head coach provides some stability and some continuity. That no matter what, there's going to be three people that are on this Warriors team no matter what. Maybe just two, but we'll say three just so my thought sounds better. It's Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Draymond Green. That's it. Everybody else on the roster could feasibly be on the table. Even though I like this Warriors team a lot, even Jimmy Butler could be on the table. Even though I like Jimmy Butler's time as a Warrior, whatever almost barely 100 games he's played as a Warrior. I really liked him as a Warrior. But those three guys are the cornerstones of this franchise, and I think with that in mind, they would try to shake up this roster a little bit and try to bring in some help just so these last 2 years of Steve Kerr's contract aren't wasted. Um, this last couple years of Steph Curry isn't wasted, and then we'll see if Draymond hangs around as long as he can or retires gracefully at some point. But um, I think this is a good move to show free agents and everybody, hey, we have this. If we don't have anything else, if we don't have a future, we at least have the right now, and the right now is these three guys. And I have a quote here from um, Steve Kerr. He says, I am grateful for the opportunity to keep coaching this team. He continues, this organization has meant so much to me these last 12 years, from ownership to our players, to our staff, to our fans. It's an incredible privilege to be a part of something so special. I'm excited to keep competing with this group. And this will mark Steve Kerr's next year. This will mark his, oh boy, 13th year as the Warriors head coach. He was originally hired on May 19th, 2019. He, at the time, and still is, he was the Warriors' 25th head coach in franchise history. Since then, you guys know the story. um, yeah, and he what is this? He On March 16th, 2026, Steve Kerr earned his 600th regular season victory, reaching the milestone in only 943 games, the fourth fewest in NBA history, only trailing Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, Greg Popovich. Wow, that's crazy. But yeah, I just think this provides some continuity for the Warriors and what could be in the next couple years, for sure, definitely in the 2030s. A lot of uncertainty, and it helps fans feel better, helps signal to other teams and other people that, hey, we still want to try to compete at least a little bit. Obviously, the last couple years haven't gone to plan. This year, especially with the Jimmy Butler injury, not great. Um, and then towards the end of the season, the Moses Moody injury, which was horrific. You lose two key players, and you come into this offseason with an open mind for sure. That again, you have these three guys, a coach, two really great players, and everything else is open for business. And I believe that if at if not at some point this offseason, maybe at the trade deadline, maybe next offseason, there will be a huge shakeup of talent for this Warriors team. So yeah, let's move on to draft lottery stuff here. Let me see. So as you can see in front of you, bottom right of your screen, um, the NBA draft lottery took place, and the Washington Wizards came out on top, uh, getting the number one pick for the first time since they drafted John Wall many years ago. And let's go through the other ones. Actually, I have to pull this up on my, because I have the full order on my phone, but I have that in front of me. Let me pull this up very quickly. Let's see here. Yes, draft results. Okay, so going from 1 all the way to 14, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of this in a moment. Um, Number 1, Washington Wizards. Number 2, Utah Jazz. Number 3, Memphis Grizzlies. Number 4, Chicago Bulls. Number 5, LA Clippers. That's from the Ivica Zubac trade that happened earlier this year. Number 6, Brooklyn Nets. Number 7, Sacramento Kings. Always mediocre Sacramento Kings. Can't even win when you're bad. Number 8, Atlanta Hawks. Number 9, Dallas Mavericks. Number 10, Milwaukee Bucks. Number 11, Golden State Warriors, who we just talked about. Number 12, Oklahoma City Thunder. And then 13, Miami Heat. And 14, Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, that's the full order. You guys don't have the full order, but I think I'm only going to talk about, probably up until 11 or something. So, um, what does this mean? And how um, how do I feel about this? I think it's great. I think because next year the draft lottery odds are going to be all jumbled up and it's going to be a huge mess, and mediocre teams are going to get the number one pick. These three teams, we'll say, just as a sample size, were probably the worst teams last year, and they probably deserve to be in the top three. Um, Teams that suffered, the Nets and the Kings probably suffered the most because they were really bad too. And even when they were trying to be bad, they wanted to get a good player to try to be good again. They didn't. They got 6 and 7. And then the Warriors, people were thinking like maybe the Mavs, the Warriors, could jump up again. I never saw that happening. Obviously, as somebody who wants Steph Curry to have some help, I thought the Warriors maybe could jump up. Yeah, nah, it didn't happen. I I think this top five is fun. I think it's a fun top five. I think it's a worthy top five. And to talk about some of the players and talk about some of the rumors and stuff, the Wizards with the number one pick. This is sort of the situation that the Spurs were in last year, where they traded for De'Aaron Fox, and they knew they had a lottery pick. They didn't know it'd be number two, and they would get Dylan Harper. I think if they knew they were going to get number two, they wouldn't have traded for De'Aaron Fox. Even though De'Aaron Fox has been good, he's been good to great at times. I think the Wizards might not have might not have gotten the Anthony Davis, might not have done the Anthony Davis deal if they knew they were going to get number one, because that sort of reduces your chances and reduces your options unless you want to trade Anthony Davis again, which is entirely possible. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. But if I think about that Wizards team, Trey Young, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, I I feel like it's too many cooks in the kitchen. If you add Anthony Davis next year, who didn't play a single game for the Wizards this year, and then you add this number one pick, it's gonna be a lot of cooks in the kitchen, man. And granted, like Alex Sarr and like Keyshawn George and whoever else they have, it doesn't have to be featured in the offense, but you would at least like them to develop. And the only way you develop is playing meaningful basketball and playing a lot of meaningful basketball. Now, can those two things happen? And they keep all their everybody Anthony Davis this number one pick? Yes. There's also been talks of them trading down, like going to number two because the Utah Jazz really want AJ Debance. AJ Debance went to BYU. Um, the Jazz owner is an alumni from BYU. He puts a lot of money into their NIL stuff. They really want AJ Debance. Now, this is also something you could say as well is like maybe the Wizards don't even want AJ Debance. Maybe they want Darren Peterson, you know? Maybe they want Cameron Boozer. And this is where, having too many cooks in the kitchen really comes into play. If you really like Cameron Boozer, you're going to have to trade Anthony Davis because a front court of like Cam Boozer, Alex Sarr, and Anthony Davis just doesn't work. Alex Sarr he's not slow, but he's not fast. You know, Kevin Boozer, we saw from his draft day combine and stuff, he isn't the fastest guy either. So you can't run all three of those guys out there. There's a lot of talk of what the Wizards could do. If I had to think about it, and there's another wrinkle to this as well, is that Darren Peterson, the projected number two pick right now, came out and said he wants to play point guard at this level, at the NBA level, which complicates things even further. So my thought right now of just like, well, I'll trade the Utah Jazz my pick. I'll go down one. You have to give me something else though. Um, I can just take Peterson at two. That doesn't work because Peterson wants to play the one, and we already have a one in Trey Young. Yeah, there's a lot of log jams. So the correct answer right now, at least by position, by like talent, by draft combine stuff, that happened 2 days ago now. Yeah, one day ago now. Um, would be AJ Debance. Don't overthink it. Just take AJ. Screw the Jazz. Don't let them take their guy. Make them think. Make them take somebody else. But also, like, to be fair, like, my thought, if I'm the GM of the Wizards, right? I'm gonna keep Anthony Davis. I'm not gonna trade him unless somebody comes to me and they're like, "We want Anthony Davis." Then I'm not trading. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it for at least a year because he has like, what was it like? Oh my god, There's like 2 more years left on his deal, something like that. 3 more. He might have even a player option. Let me see. Davis. Let's see. Anthony Davis. Yes, Anthony Davis. He has. Yeah, he has until 20. Yeah, so he has a player option in 2027, 2028. So technically, next year is the only guaranteed year he has left on his deal. And then if he picks up that player option the following year, he's getting paid $62 million. I don't even think they're gonna have him by that time. So maybe you rip the band-aid off and you trade Anthony Davis anyway, but like I don't know. I don't know. But to my thought, I would I would trade down. Even though AJ might be the best talent, I would say in my mind, we trade down one, we get some additional assets for the number one pick. We do a swap, trade a couple picks, second rounders, first rounders, whatever, right? And then we as the Wizards take Darren Peterson. And I sit Darren Peterson down and I say, hey, we're gonna rest Trey Young at some point. He's not gonna play. We're not gonna make him play a lot because he does have an injury history. You're gonna get to run the second unit as a point guard. We're not gonna make you be a two guard, a full time two guard. You're going to be a combo guard because I think Darren Peterson and Trey Young on the same floor makes sense. It makes sense because it's a two scoring backcourt. And then even if both of them aren't the best on defense or the greatest on defense, um, even though Dan Peterson's steals were quite high in college, you have a front court of Anthony Davis and Alex Sarr. I think it could work. That's overthinking it. That's trading down, keeping everybody, just adding Darren Peterson to this group and having Trey Young, Darren Peterson, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, and Anthony Davis. That's that whole thing, right? There's another part of me that, as somebody who watched a lot of Cameron Boozer, and there are a lot of Cameron Boozer detractors that would say, don't take him with the number one pick, right? Don't take him with the number one pick. I don't think I would take Cameron Boozer with the number one pick. If they trade down, however, I might consider taking him with the number two pick and passing on Darren Peterson. Um, because then that would mean I would just trade Anthony Davis anyway. And that might not be the right thing to do because you're not going to get the same value that you gave up for him, but it would solidify a younger front court and a really good defensive front court to back up Trey Young, you know? And then you can fill in the two. You can bring in a veteran shooting guard. You can bring in a veteran forward if you really want to in the off season. But I think my two for the Wizards in particular would be Debansa or Boozer, and then Peterson three would be my third option. Anybody below that, like Caleb Wilson, Keontae Wagler, Keaston Flemings, Darius Acuff, no, 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 no. So yeah, and then for the Jazz, we'll talk about from the Jazz perspective very quickly. If their prerogative is to just get Debansa, that makes sense. Because if they have to take anybody else, it's a logjam. If they have to take Peterson, it's a logjam at the guard spot. Because then you have to pair him with Keontae George in the backcourt. And then if you take Boozer, who's Kevin Boozer's dad, Carlos Boozer, is a front office guy with the Utah Jazz. It'd be a coming home party of sorts, keep the family together. But it creates a logjam at the forward spot. You don't have the number two pick come off the bench. Even if you have currently in Utah Walker Kessler coming off an injury, um, Jaren Jackson Jr., who you are paying a whole lot of money, Lauri Markkanen, who you're paying a whole lot of money, it's going to become very tricky to play all those guys, and there's going to be an odd man out, and you probably don't want to do that because you've been collecting this talent for so long. You don't want to trade any of it. So that'd be my thought process with that. And then at three, the Grizzlies, who jumped up. I'm just happy for the Grizzlies to have a top three pick. That means John Morant's out of there, so no more John Morant. It's going to be the young core. It's going to be Cedric Howard. It's going to be Zach Edey. There's another person I'm forgetting, but not Jalen Wells. What's the other one? There's another guy, but I think just getting any of these guys, the Bance is not going to fall past two. So if you get Peterson or Cam Boozer, it's a plus. Caleb Wilson, fine. He's not a bit more of a project, but he's sort of similar not archetype, but like similar tangibles to Cameron Boozer. So you wouldn't be losing out on a lot. You'd just be losing out on like name recognition or something, I think. And then at 4, for the Bulls, jumping up as well, they'll be happy with anybody. If I had to tell one team not to overthink it, it would be the Bulls. Just take who's ever left on the board and who's ever at the top of your board. Don't overthink it. And then for the Clippers at 5, who's the last team we'll talk about in order, um, getting whoever falls to them at 5 would be amazing. I would maybe, I would maybe look at. I don't know where their heads at right now, but I would maybe look at Darius Acuff. Just look at him. Just look at him a little bit, because I know he's a point guard. I know he's like maybe sort of too similar to Darius Garland, but like you could work it out. It could work. It could work. And you could bring him off the bench too. It doesn't really matter at that point. He's a top 5 pick. I mean, it doesn't really matter at that point. Obviously, the ones that have mocked up right here are like uh, Keaton Wagler. I don't know why you would take Wagler over Acuff. I mean, Wagler is three inches taller, but like they're the same age. Darius Acuff's a better scorer, a better assist guy. Um, you're starting a pseudo rebuild, so I don't know why you wouldn't take Acuff and just swing on that. Also, going down the line here, the the Brooklyn Nets, just as a note, got screwed. They're going to have to take somebody they really don't want. And they already have a bunch of guards, and this is a very guard heavy class. So they might have to reach for somebody. They might have to reach for like a Yaxel Lenborg, Hans Steinbach. Let's see here. Who else? Who's the other guy? Oh man, who is he? He's right here. Chris Sinak as well. Where is he? The other kid. What's his name? You might have to reach on an a day Mara too, because like, let's be honest, the only trade chip the Brooklyn Nets have is right now, um, Nick Claxton, and you might want to get him out of there. Not saying he's a bad player, but he's just not on the timeline anymore. And if I was the Nets, I would try to take a forward, because or I would try to take a bigger forward that could play power forward and center, or just a pure center. So again, like Yaxel Lembor, you can play as a center, Day Mara, Chris Sinak, like that's who I would, or Hans Steinbach, who's a forward, power forward. That's who I would go for if I was the Nets, because like you already have so many guards. Get a center. Let's complete the set, right? You took a bunch of guards last year, guards slash wing players. Get a center, and then ship Nicholas Claxton off, and then maybe get something else in return for him. And then moving down here, just interestingly enough, the Bucks are at number 10. They have the number 10 pick right now. They have them taking Nate Ahmet, who I really like, but if I'm the Bucks, maybe I could talk to some of these teams and say, hey, help me. I'll give you Giannis if you help me trade up. You could look at, maybe even the Clippers. That could be something. Could even look at, you know, the uh, the Hawks, the what logo am I looking at here? The Mavericks. Jesus. You could look at the Mavericks. That was sort of rumored a long time ago that Giannis was going to go to the Mavericks, or the Mavericks are trying to get him. That was an old front office. That was an old ownership group. I'm not sure if they want him right now, especially because he might not fit with Cooper. But you could run Cooper and Giannis. You could do it. Power forward, center. Yeah, you could run it. I could see it. And then that's something to watch out for. And then here at number 11, you have the Warriors, who, similar to the Nets, I think they should take a center. I think they should take Yaxel Lenenborg, Chris Sinak, or I really do think they should take a Daymara. A Daymara is not a Steve Kerr kind of player, or like a prototypical Warriors player, but like if you could at some point next season play a Daymara and Kristaps Porzingis, that is a scary front court, and that really helps Steph, because you can get blocks, tip it back out, or just throw it up the court. Steph's going down the floor. Warriors basketball. Bing, bang, boom. And then sitting right here, a team in the conference finals right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder, with pick number 12. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to move this if their guy isn't on the board on draft night, because like you could just you teams would be salivating for number 12 just to move up, and you could get a player out of it. You could get a player from, let's see here, from the Bulls, maybe from um, the Raptors, from maybe even the Pistons. You could get a little player, and the Oklahoma City Thunder love getting players, just like little role players from other teams that they can plug and play on their roster on cheaper contracts. And yeah, I think that's my draft stuff. My stuff about the draft lottery and the results, and my kind of immediate feelings right now. We'll obviously talk about this more as it gets closer to happening. And speaking of Oklahoma City taking little players from other teams and plugging and playing them on their really good team, let's talk about Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey, man. Daryl Morey got fired, and he got fired for an undisclosed reason, for other reasons other than trading Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Um, I I've always maintained the thought that Daryl Morey is a very lucky guy in that at the beginning, I don't want to say the beginning, but at the pinnacle of his career, he was able to snag James Harden away from Oklahoma back in the day. This is way back in the day, to come play in Houston when he was the GM in Houston. And James Harden turned into an MVP candidate. He made Daryl Morey look like a genius. And then Daryl Morey brings in, um, yeah, he brings in, he brings in, I think he brought in Dwight Howard. That didn't work, and then they get rid of him, and then they bring in that whole new system with Mike D'Antoni as the coach. They tried different variations of that team with Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, and eventually it all goes south. And then I believe he took a year or two off, or maybe not even, and he ends up in Philly. And then with Philly, they get so lucky in the draft previous to get BJ Edgecombe, and in between the Houston time and that time of getting BJ Edgecombe, there was a couple moves that Daryl Morey made that were very savvy. Getting rid of the Ben Simmons deal, getting James Harden again to come play in Philly. That relationship fell apart completely. James Harden called Daryl Morey a liar. And I said last year, and this wasn't a hot take. I've heard this from other people as well, where it's like Daryl Morey should have considered trading James Harden at last offseason. Did I say did I say James Harden? I meant Joel Embiid. Pardon me. Daryl Morey should have considered trading Joel Embiid um, last offseason. Just get out of the contract, get out of the business. There was no reason to keep him. He dealt with more injuries this year, but he played more like himself than ever. I would say I'd say about closer to himself. But and and then instead of doing that, instead of getting rid of Joel Embiid, you get you get Paul George on this mega deal, which is luckily now is expiring, but even in the moment it didn't look good. Um, and it just I think that was the nail in the dagger, was getting Paul George on this horrendous deal when you know he doesn't show up in the playoffs. When you know that's what you need, that's what Joel Embiid needs, is guys to show up in the playoffs, because he still hasn't been to the conference finals. He's the only MVP in NBA history not to make it to the conference finals. So you need playoff risers, and Daryl Morey actively goes out and gets a playoff sinker. And his time with the Sixers was over. And they did this. They did this. I think they announced this before the draft combine, so they could get another. They could get their guys, whoever they were, at the draft combine instead of Daryl Morey, and they could make a really good draft pick with the. They don't even have a lottery pick. Um, with what talent they have, they can make a draft decision with the other front office talent that they have. Um, I think Daryl Morey sort of. I think Daryl Morey's time in the NBA is over, and I don't mean that as like disrespectful, but like he was in that analytic boom of, like, I would say post 2017 to about like 2023, when it stopped being about analytics and guys who shoot the ball the best and like just running the best shooters out there. It stopped being about that. Like that prototypical Rockets team that almost beat the Warriors. It stopped being about that, and it started being about over the last couple years getting high IQ players, getting guys who can play defense and guys who can shoot. So more just visual stuff, not so much the number stuff. Numbers obviously do play a big part in basketball and decision making to this day, but it's not as much. It's the tangibles. It's the length. It's the wingspan. It's the size. It's the IQ. It's all that stuff. And Daryl Morey's time in the NBA is probably over because he's infatuated with the analytics of it. And um, yeah, and then there's also an interesting wrinkle in this that I kind of forgot about was I don't I didn't know this or maybe I forgot it, but um, the story is by ESPN Sham Sharani is Daryl Morey exiting as president of the Philadelphia 76ers and Nick Nurse continuing as head coach. So Nick Nurse will stay the head coach at least for now. And then with Bob Myers leading the search for the team's new head of basketball operations, the Bob Myers, like Warriors Bob Myers from like the championship days. I didn't know Bob Myers was involved with the Sixers. Maybe I did talk about that at some point, but I don't remember talking about that. So if they got Bob Myers looking for the next guy, then I think they'll find a good guy. There have been a lot of shakeups in front offices recently with new guys getting an opportunity, not so much older like seasoned GMs, but like new guys with new ideas and new philosophies and new ways to build teams and circumvent the first, second apron and teams that draft well. Um, and if the Sixers can get back on track, I said this in a video previous when obviously I thought Daryl Morey was still the GM because the story hadn't come out yet, or the news hasn't come out hadn't come out yet. But they have VJ, they have Tyrese, they'll be fine. I don't know their draft pick situation. I mean, I could probably look at it, but that's not. This video's already running long, so I'm not gonna look at it. But yeah, they'll be fine. And even without Daryl Morey, I think they'll find a good GM to replace him. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is very quickly the Giannis thing that the as draft day approaches, and the draft order is set, and like we talked about, the Bucks have a lottery pick or borderline lottery pick, and they're open for business, and they're open to trading Giannis and maybe trading with one of these teams in front of you to move up and secure their talent in the immediate future, like in a couple weeks, and then letting Giannis go and go off and do what he needs to do. Um, I think I think this is the best time to start like poking around for it at least. Start really talking to teams. Make it really serious because the last year and a half, couple months has been just blowing smoke. Like it was never going to happen during the season. It's too much of a drastic change for any team to trade for a all-star level player, a franchise guy, a all-time player during the season. It's just too much. And the team, I think Giannis is going to get traded to a weird team. I don't unless the Knicks have looked great. I don't think they have any intention of blowing this up unless there's some like catastrophic thing that happens in the conference finals. If they make the finals with this group, the Knicks are out of it. I don't think they're swinging on Giannis like that. I think this group is really good for the Knicks. You look at a team like LA. I've thought about it over and over and over again. I just really don't like Giannis and Luca. It makes sense on paper, and when I think about it, immediately makes sense. Like both these guys have their injury problems now. Both these guys, they could be Kobe and Shaq, but like I don't know, something about it just doesn't. Giannis likes to have the ball in his hand, and Luca loves to have the ball in his hand, and it could work, and one of them could compromise, and the compromise could result in a really good team. But going straight from LeBron to Giannis, it's the same sort of deal where like at least LeBron has the IQ, and I'm not saying Giannis doesn't have the IQ. LeBron has the IQ to pick his spots and know where he needs to do, and know what he needs to do, and know what shot they need in that moment, and plays very high IQ basketball. Giannis sort of has played one way his whole career. And recently he started to change it a little bit. He's added like a post game, like a real post fade game, a stutter stop, like mid range shot that goes in or doesn't. He's not afraid to take the three ball now. Like, so he is evolving, but like him evolving with Luca and the Lakers going immediately into another era like that, I don't think would be great. Maybe it would be, maybe it would be fine. They would figure it out, but I don't know. And Giannis is the prototypical player that fits with Luca, a run, jump, dunk sort of guy, and Luca loves those guys. Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. Um, he's made those guys a lot of money. Luca did when he was a Maverick, and we'll see. This Giannis stuff is just. I think now's the time. Now's the real time to like lock in and get serious about it, and the Bucks should get something really good because this is a really good draft class, and whatever talent you manage to get is going to help you in the long run. And the more you drag this Giannis stuff out post draft and like into the deep into the off season, something a better deal could come along, or you could be whiffing on something that could be really special by trading him on draft night. So yeah, that's my thought on that, and yeah, um, some housekeeping stuff. I said in my last video, but I'll say in this video as well, some changes are going to happen to the channel, some very positive changes that are coming up next week. Um, I know you guys are going to love them. I'm trying to improve the quality and the content for you guys, so keep an eye out for that. Um, Possibly a double upload tomorrow, maybe not actually, because there's no NBA games tonight, so you guys will get a WNBA video tomorrow. And if both games are good, then you will get both games. And if both games aren't good, then we only get one, and we'll find something else to talk about. So yeah, that's it. That's the video. The end screen should be playing right now. Check out the video on the left. Check out my NBA Road to the NBA Draft playlist on the right. And if you click my little icon right in the middle, a little subscribe will pop up, and you can subscribe with ease. Like and comment as well. And I will see you guys next time. Cheers.